Hello, my name is Dan Brown, and welcome to another episode of Let's Hike. Today I'm doing Let's Hike the Blue Trail Part 2. It's been a very long time since I got a chance to continue this, but this is probably going to be, I might do the rest of it, the rest of the Blue Trail in Sleeping Giant State Park, but I might just do a third because this part of the trail is where the most stories that I have to tell occur. So, without further ado, let's continue. So, the first spot I would like to talk about on the Blue Trail is this log here. May not look like very much, it's just a rotting log now, but when I was a kid, this log, about a decade or more ago, was actually quite thick, and it was very high off the ground, maybe about 2 feet off the ground. And when I was a kid, my brother and I would come here with my father, and we would always walk across this log like a balancing beam. And my father would stand here at this end of the log with his foot on the log, and he was actually pretty big guy. He was probably about 6'2", and he would shake the log as we were trying to balance across, and it was like a game for us. Like we'd try to make it across the log without falling off, and he'd be standing there shaking the log. And there were actually a couple of spots like that in this park, like places where we would balance, and my father would try to knock us off. And I remember there was this quote that I would always used to say, because we went to some kind of outdoor event, I think in Meriden, Connecticut, where they had this little children's like circus or something, and there was this little girl who was walking along a piece of rope it was just lying on the ground, and she was pretending it was a balancing beam, and she had a cup, and there was a stuffed animal monkey on the cup, and she was balancing, and then the monkey was supposed to be balancing on the cup, and she made this joke that was kind of funny at the time. She would say, even though it wasn't very dangerous for her, but she would say, "Oh, this is very dangerous for the monkey." And I always thought that was kind of funny when I was a kid. So I'd be balancing across this log, and I would always say, "Oh, this is very dangerous for the monkey." And then my father would usually knock me off the log. All right, so part of what this Let's Hike series is about is not only hiking and showing you scenery and showing you the difficulty of the trail, but also it's about storytelling and telling about interesting places to me, and hopefully other people will start doing their own Let's Hike videos and showing off state parks in their area, and also telling some stories that are important to them. Alright, so let's continue. this is around the spot where I actually on the White Trail episode of Let's Hike, I believe I told a story about how my father kind of separated from us, and while me, my brother, and Brian were climbing the rocks, and he kind of went up ahead and came over the route that I just showed myself walking down, and we were up this way climbing over these rocks, and we came down through the woods here somewhere, and we met up with him, and he was standing just on the side of the trail, and he said, "Hey, I want to show you something." And so he walked over, and he reached into his pocket, and he pulled out this little snake that he picked up, and it was I guess it was a fall day, kind of like this. It's pretty warm today, but that day it was a little cold. And he pulled out of his pocket a little snake, and he was saying, "Oh, I found this snake on the side of the trail," and he was freezing, so I put him in my pocket to warm up. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, wow, that's such a strange thing to do, because like sometimes snakes are a little intimidating, but he just reached over and he put it in his pocket. And I said, "What if the snake peed in your pocket?" And he said, "Well, I guess I'd have snake pee in my pocket." And then he just kind of put the snake down in the leaves, and it slithered away. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Since then, I've actually found a couple of different snakes that were out too late in the season and it was cold, and I ended up picking them up and putting them in the sunlight somewhere so they could warm up. But anyway, that happened on this trail right here. So here we have the tower that's on the chest of Sleeping Giant, or maybe the belly. Um, it's here because I guess in the Great Depression there were the president wanted to have some programs that created jobs, so they were beautifying state parks, and they had this construction project where they would build. I guess they built this tower here to give people jobs because there were very few at the time. So they built this tower up here, and it's one of the interesting spots here at the park. A lot of families come here because there's a tower trail that you probably just saw me cross over a couple of shots back, and it's like a gravelly road that leads up here. So it's very easy to get to this, but I've taken the blue trail, so I'm not really going to talk too much about the tower trail. Let's get a closer look. Looks like they're currently undergoing some construction. They redid the wall. Some fireplaces in here. So I used to bring like hot dogs here and build a little fire in there and cook them, and it was kind of cool. Though you're supposed to pack out all your garbage And I remember like people would always like throw garbage in the fireplace, so sometimes you couldn't make a fire because the people would just use the fireplace like a dump. And one time I was cooking food in that fireplace, and this woman was like, "Can I throw my garbage in your fire?" And I was kind of grossed out. I was like, I'd really rather you didn't. And she gave me this really dirty look. And it was like, can I eat my food and cook my food without getting your garbage fumes all over my hot dogs? Like, it was just disgusting. And I was kind of offended, and I didn't really feel like she needed to do that. So one of the things that I used to do when I was a kid, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it now because I'm old and not as good of a climber as I used to be. But I used to climb up this the doorway and climb up into that window right there. I think I'm gonna try it, but again, I'm not in as good a shape as I used to be. So hopefully this is not a video of me hurting myself. But maybe I'll cut the film and psych myself up a bit. But here, let me see if I can do it. Yeah, it seemed like I was running into a lot of trouble, but I used to be able to hang from that little metal piece and jump up and grab that bar and climb in the rest of the way. But like I said, I'm not a kid anymore. So, challenge failed. And you can get out on the balcony by going through the window. Here's one of the rooms of the tower. This is like the second floor. I used to bring my guitar in here all the time and just sit in the corner and play it because the acoustics in this area are they're very good. And sometimes I'd just bring a harmonica if I didn't feel like bringing a guitar, or if the weather was too cold for a guitar. One time I came in here and somebody had taken an enormous poop right over in the corner there. Here's the top floor of the tower. And then there's a little ramp. You can go up there. There's the west. And the approximate north. Can't really see much to the east without trees. I used to climb up there and sit when I was younger. This is to the south. On a clear day you can see Long Island Sound. Quinnipiac is over the hill somewhere there. Alright, so now I'm going to tell the story of the Battle of Sleeping Giant. So one day in the wintertime, me and Brian and my brother and my father came up here, and me and Brian were standing out on this balcony here, and we were just kind of messing around, and one of us, I forget which one, threw a snowball at the other and missed. And the snowball missed and it went over the balcony, and at the time there was this whole troop of Boy Scouts that was up here for whatever reason, and the snowball missed and hit one of the Boy Scouts. So at that point the Boy Scout started telling his other Boy Scout friends that we were throwing snowballs at them, even though we weren't, and they decided that they were going to team up on us, and they started throwing snowballs up into the balcony where we were, and we were under siege from a whole troop of them. And so me and Brian kind of backed away from the edge, and we were kind of taking cover toward the wall here, so they couldn't really see us that well. So me and Brian were kind of like up against the wall here, and the whole balcony was just surrounded with Boy Scouts, and they were just pounding us with snowballs from every direction. And we were really taking a beating. And my brother was out in the kind of in the woods or just patrolling around, and they didn't really know he was associated with us. So he came up behind them, and he was just flanking them from behind and kind of attacking them, and trying to take them by surprise. And the Boy Scout leader at the time was this kind of heavy-set guy with his hat on that said "Kiss My Bass." It was a Bass Pro Shop hat, and so he was their leader, and he was like up in the windows up there, kind of talking down to us and telling us how to trying to give us advice, like tactical maneuvers. And we were like, I don't know, we kind of turned our noses up at his advice because he was kind of telling us stuff that we were already doing. And so and my brother was he was down off the balcony somewhere, and I guess he learned what was happening and he started to help. So me and Brian, after the barrage was getting too much for us, we escaped through the windows and we made our way up to the top. So Brian and I came through this window, and we proceeded up these hallways, and there were still some Boy Scouts in the hall, and we were like fighting our way up to the top of the tower, and we kind of had a little bit of a snowball fight with all the people that were still remaining in the tower, and finally we made it to the top. So when Brian and I fought our way up the hallway to the upper level, and cleared all the Boy Scouts out from the top, or the top floor, we kind of looked out this window like this. And there were a whole bunch of Boy Scouts down on the balcony where we had just been. And it was that time that I decided to dump the Hawaiian Punch down on top of them. we used to carry these big canisters, like it was like almost like a like one of those hiking water bottles where it was like really tall and it had a straw. And I had one that was filled with Hawaiian punch. And so, as kind of like a final, you know, tide-turning maneuver, I was a young kid and I was kind of a little bit, and so I thought it would be a good idea to unscrew the cap of my Hawaiian punch and dump it on all the Boy Scouts down there. And I can't remember if it was just a bunch of, if it was the Boy Scouts. I think that the leader, the Boy Scout troop leader, the Bassmaster, as we called him, might have been down there. And I feel like I may have dumped the Hawaiian punch on him too, but I can't really be sure. And so, but anyway, I dumped the Hawaiian punch on all the people that were milling around down on the balcony. And after that, the Bassmaster came up and just started chewing us out and just yelling at him. And Jeff and Brian were just kind of snickering and laughing at him. So Bassmaster chewed us out, and we just kind of declared that as a victory. And we would tell the story that we defeated an entire troop of Boy Scouts in the greatest snowball fight that ever was. Alright, so my battery's only at 5%, so I'm gonna have to call this the end of part 2. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that happened at this tower in the next episode, and I'll talk about Dead Man's Cave and some geocaching spots that are around here. So yeah, this is the end of part 2, and thanks for coming along with me.